Hey guys, my name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be filming another very exciting video of if you like this book, I think you would also like this movie slash TV show. I've done this video a couple of times now. I want to say like 3 times at least, so I'll be putting the links in the description to all the previous times that I've done this, and this is not an original idea, so I will be also linking down below the original video that I saw for this. But I think that this is such a fun way to recommend books and movies because I do often find similarities between books and TV shows and books and movies. I will apologize because this list is going to include 8 book and TV comparisons and 6 book to movie comparisons, but before we do jump into the actual video, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring another video, because whether you're interested in books or movies, Skillshare has classes for everyone, and I guarantee that you will find a class that you're interested in taking. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of different classes for creative and curious people. I feel like especially right now with everything that's going on in the world, things can feel very uncertain, and so it might be nice to set a goal for yourself to learn something new creatively and kind of dedicate yourself to taking a class right now. Drawing, writing, and journaling classes can be a great way to relieve stress. If you're interested in film at all, I've been taking this class recently called Cinematography Basics: Understanding Filmmaking Style by Zach Mulligan, and it's been super informative to know more about what goes into cinematography. And I feel like even a lot of film lovers don't totally understand what cinematography is and all that goes into it, so this class has been super informative and it's taught me so much about cinematography. But they do also offer classes in writing, animation, graphic design, photography, marketing, web development, like literally nearly any creative thing that you can think of, they probably have a class for it. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. So the first 1,000 subscribers to click the link in my description will get a 2-month free trial of premium membership so that you can explore your own creativity. I've personally really loved exploring some of their different class options while I've been stuck in quarantine because it really gives me something to do and it makes me feel so inspired and motivated. And yeah, just use the link in my description and you can get 2 free months and do the same while you're stuck in quarantine. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now let's jump into the book recommendations. So I wanted to start with the book and TV adaptations first, so it'll be like if you liked this book you might also enjoy this TV show. So the first one I have for you is if you liked Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky, I think you would also like the show Stranger Things, because honestly these two reminded me so much of each other, and the fact that both of these stories follow young kids. In Stranger Things, they're all kind of like teenager age, and then in this book, the little boy's actually 7, but he reads a lot more like a teenager in my opinion. But Imaginary Friend is this amazing horror novel that follows this 7-year-old boy who thinks he has an imaginary friend, and it's very spooky and very weird, and just his little group of friends in this book just totally reminded me of Stranger Things for some reason. And there's a lot of like different plot things in here that remind me a lot of Stranger Things, and Stranger Things is one of the most iconic TV shows. If you haven't seen it, I think if you like one, you would definitely enjoy the other two. My next one is going to be if you liked the book Her Pretty Face, then I think you would also like the TV show Dead to Me on Netflix. This one is mainly because both of these are kind of like thriller mystery books and shows. This book is about this woman who becomes friends with this other woman, and they both have this kind of like mysterious past that you're trying to figure out. And then in Dead to Me, we also follow these 2 women who become friends when they meet at this grief counseling group, and we don't find out what they have in common until later on. It's kind of a spoiler, like where their relationship goes, but I do think Dead to Me is the better out of the 2 of these. But if you liked the vibes of one of these, then you might enjoy the other. My next one is going to be if you liked If Only I Could Tell You by Hannah Beckerman, I think you might like the TV show This Is Us. Both of these stories rely heavily on dramatic family dynamic kind of stories. This Is Us is one of my favorite TV shows of all time because it follows this family and we kind of get to see their lives from like when they were born until like later in their adulthood and even in the future. And I just love following this Pearson family so much, and their family dynamics is so interesting and fascinating, and it's mainly like a really good tearjerker, you know, like this show makes you cry. And same with this book, like this book really makes you cry, and it mainly follows these 2 sisters who are now adults and they're no longer speaking, and it's kind of about their mom too and how she's trying to bring the sisters back together and make them talk to each other again. And you don't find out about like why they're not speaking until later on in the book, and it's just so dramatic, but it's so good. Oh my god, I cried so much while I read this book. Alright, my next recommendation is going to be if you liked the book The Passengers by John Mars or The One by John Mars. I really think you would enjoy Black Mirror on Netflix, because honestly both of these books feel like a Black Mirror episode to me. The One is about this universe where you can take a DNA test and find the one person that you're supposed to end up with. It's like crazy soulmate kind of shit. We follow a bunch of different perspectives in this book, and one of them happens to be from a serial killer's point of view. So there's just a really bunch of fascinating stuff happening in this book, and the premise alone just kind of reminds me of Black Mirror. Same with The Passengers, because this one takes place in a future where cars are self-driving themselves, and then 8 people get stuck inside of their car and they get told that they're going to die in like an hour, and the streams from inside of their car is being broadcast to the public, and the public has to choose which one of them are going to die first. And it just feels very, very Black Mirror to me, especially the twists and stuff that ends up happening in this book. If you didn't know, Black Mirror is actually an anthology show that kind of has crazy premises of episodes, kind of like these books have, and they're all very like futuristic sci-fi. They involve like technology that, if this technology was invented, humanity might be in trouble, you know? Like, it shows like the darker side of technology advancement. The next one is going to be if you liked The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, then you might also like Bates Motel. There is a great motel comparison here, because Sundown Motel takes place at this really creepy, spooky, maybe haunted hotel. And then Bates Motel, it all takes place around this creepy hotel, but it's also like Norman Bates is a psycho, you know, because Bates Motel is a prequel to the movie Psycho, so we follow Norman Bates and his mom Norma. This book is also like, they just have like similar vibes to me, and it probably is mostly because of the motel vibes. I personally think if you enjoy one, you'll probably enjoy the other. I will say I enjoy Bates Motel more as a whole. This book was just okay for me, like this was like a 3-star for me, but the vibes of both of these things just match each other so well. Next one is going to be if you liked the book Wanderers by Chuck Wendig. I think you might also like the show The Walking Dead. These were just so similar to me in vibes as well, because Wanderers is a book about these people who are sleepwalking endlessly, and they kind of just walk around like zombies, and the people can't figure out why or what's going on with them, so they're just walking mindlessly in this giant herd of sleepwalkers. And in The Walking Dead, obviously, it's like a zombie show, and there are zombies that they call The Walking Dead. Because of the small town vibe kind of in Wanderers and the way that we follow this family, I don't know, I feel like The Walking Dead is more apocalyptic, and then Wanderers feels more like the start of like a pandemic or something, but both of them just have such similar vibes, so I feel like if you enjoyed one, you'll probably enjoy the other too. My next one is going to be if you liked Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter or The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter. I think you'd enjoy the TV show True Detective on HBO. All of these stories have this really gritty, dark, true crime vibe to them, and they're all some of the darkest things that I've ever read and ever seen. True Detective, especially season 1 of True Detective, is what I'm specifically talking about, because that is the best season in my opinion by far. But both of these books have some of the most graphic shit I've ever read about in a book, but they also just have this really like gritty realness to them. They have characters that are very fascinating and very interesting, and I feel like it's the same in True Detective, where you just really love the relationship between the two detectives in True Detective, and it just feels so dark and raw and real, and I just feel like it has the same kind of vibe as these books have. But True Detective, I kind of only recommend the first season. And then the last book and TV show recommendation I have is if you liked the book Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I think you might also like the TV show on Netflix, Living With Yourself. Both of these stories kind of deal with this idea of like an alternate version of yourself. In Dark Matter, we follow this guy who wakes up in a world where his wife is no longer his wife and his son was never born, and he's trying to figure out what the heck happened. It kind of asks this question like, are you really the happiest version of yourself, or is there another version of you out there somewhere who made different choices, who's living a better life? And then in the show Living With Yourself, it kind of is a much more lighthearted approach to the same idea, where Paul Rudd is our main character, and he goes to this place where he gets cloned, and he doesn't realize he gets cloned, and they promise that they're gonna make you like the happiest version of yourself. He has to compete with this other version of himself who's like freaking perfect and happy and just amazing, and it's just really fascinating. So I feel like if you liked the concept in one of these, then maybe check out the other because they're pretty similar. All right, now it's time for the book to movie comparisons. The first one is going to be, if you liked Wilder Girls by Rory Power, I think you would also like the movie Annihilation. Honestly, these have such similar vibes. I think Area X in Annihilation is really similar to Raxter. Both of these stories follow all female characters. In Annihilation, it's going to be 4 females that are like scientists and doctors and biologists and psychiatrists going into Area X. And then in Wilder Girls, we follow all of these young teenage girls. It's kind of like Lord of the Flies, but all with girls in Wilder Girls. These stories both include a lot of like weird body horror, which is weird to read about and weird to watch. And yeah, they're both just very weird sci-fi that's also very creepy. So I think if you did enjoy one, you'll probably enjoy the other too. I personally prefer the Annihilation movie over Wilder Girls as a book, but that's mainly because the story in Annihilation is slightly more interesting to me and because I love Natalie Portman. Next one is going to be, if you like the book The Chain, that's this adult thriller, I think you would also like the movie It Follows. This is mainly due to the fact that it has like a similar chain reaction thing happening in both of these. These are both kind of like thriller horror stories, and It Follows is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. So The Chain is basically this book where these parents' kids get kidnapped, and then the only way for them to get their kid back is to kidnap another kid, and it's this chain reaction of all these parents being forced to go out and kidnap other kids. And then in It Follows, we follow this girl who has sex with this guy, and then after she has sex with him, there's these creepy people following her around everywhere, and they're trying to kill her, these people, but they're just slowly following her everywhere she goes. And I think this movie is kind of a metaphor about STDs and how when you sleep with someone, you might get something that you didn't expect. This movie is freaking terrifying, and the only way to get rid of it that follows is to sleep with someone else and pass it on to them. So I feel like both of these are very similar in the sense that they have this chain reaction of events that need to happen. Like something awful happens to you, now you need to go do the same awful thing to somebody else in order to pass it on. And it's just fascinating. Like both of these stories are really fascinating. I will say The Chain ended up being kind of more disappointing for me at the end, but It Follows is so freaking good, iconic. Alright, my next one is going to be, if you liked the book The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan, I think you would also like the movie The Farewell. So in The Astonishing Color of After, we follow this young girl who's half Asian and half white, and her mom commits suicide, and she thinks that her mom comes back as a bird. And then it's also about how she goes to visit her family in Taiwan. And then in the Farewell movie, it's about this girl who has to go back to China because she finds out that her grandma's dying. But in this movie, they don't tell the grandma that she's dying because, like, in Chinese culture, I guess, they don't want the person that's dying of cancer to know that they're dying of cancer, so she is unaware of that. And so I feel like both of these stories involve like family and death and grief, and they both also happen to follow Asian female characters. And Awkwafina is the lead in The Farewell, and I just love her so much, and the relationship between Awkwafina and her grandma in this movie is just so cute and so precious. The next one is gonna be, if you liked The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren, I think you might also like Set It Up on Netflix, because these are both like rom-com type of stories. In The Honey Don't List, we follow this girl who is working as an assistant to this couple that's really big and well known for their reality show on HGTV, and she is an assistant to them, and then it's kind of about her having a romance with the other assistant, who's this dude who also works as an assistant for them, and then they kind of fall for each other during the crazy fiasco of dealing with these people. And then in Set It Up, it's kind of a similar situation where we follow these two people who are working as interns for their big bosses. They're both exhausted of never getting a break, so they decide that they're gonna try to set up their bosses so that they will get more of a break from work and they'll be like in a better mood. So the whole premise of this movie is how they're setting up their bosses to be together, but meanwhile they're also catching feelings for each other. It's super cute. I will say Set It Up is better in my opinion than The Honey Don't List. I feel like The Honey Don't List might have been inspired by Set It Up because it's just very similar. Alright, my next one is is going to be If You Like the Book, He Started It by Samantha Downing. I think you would also like the movie Knives Out and vice versa. Both of these stories kind of revolve around these siblings kind of getting more cutthroat over a family inheritance that they're expected to inherit. Because in Knives Out, we follow a bunch of different characters who are all siblings and like this giant family who's rich. Their dad is this really successful author who dies at the beginning of this movie. Then we kind of watch as they scramble over like the inheritance money that they're expected to receive, and it's just the most entertaining shit. Like, I freaking love this movie so much, and I feel like it's kind of similar to He Started It because in this book we follow 3 siblings who their grandpa recently died, and now they're expected to go on this road trip across the country in order to get their inheritance. They're recreating the road trip from their childhood, and I don't know, I just feel like these are both very similar, and honestly, like, I can so picture like Chris Evans playing the brother Eddie in this book. Like, I can just see some of the cast, like, it was like crossing over in my head while I was reading it, and I think that's part of the reason why I ended up loving this book so much, was because it reminded me so much of Knives Out. And then this last one is also gonna kind of involve Knives Out a little bit, because I think if you enjoyed The Guest List by Lucy Foley, I think you would enjoy the movie Knives Out as well as the movie Ready or Not. This one follows this group of people that are at a wedding on a remote island in Ireland. And so we follow from the point of view of 6 different characters, and there's a murder, and it's kind of like a whodunit, and we're trying to figure out who in this wedding killed someone else in this wedding. And it's just crazy. It's like one of my favorite new whodunit kind of stories, and it reminds me of Knives Out just because of the whole following like a giant group of people, and every single person has a motive to kill this person, and you're just trying to figure out who it is. And it has very smart and clever writing in the same way that Knives Out kind of does. But then it also reminds me of the movie Ready or Not, because Ready or Not actually also takes place during a wedding. In the movie Ready or Not, there's this crazy ritual in this family where they have to play a game on the wedding night, and in this movie the girl draws the card for hide and seek, and what that game means in their family is that they have to kill the bride before the sun comes up, or else everyone in their family is gonna die. Ready or Not is like slightly different from this book, but it kind of has like similar vibes because the isolation that happens, because all of this book takes place on this really secluded spooky island, and then in Ready or Not it all takes place in the family's like giant mansion, and it's very creepy. And because of the whole like wedding party and the craziness of a wedding and somebody dying during the wedding, you know, like, it just, they kind of remind me of each other in that sense. I really enjoyed The Guest List though. Like, oh my god, it's one of my favorite thrillers, and both of these movies are very entertaining kind of thriller movies as well. Those are all of my book to movie and book to TV show comparisons for you today, but hopefully you enjoyed this video. I really love doing book to movie comparisons. It's like honestly one of my favorite videos to make like this. Please let me know what your thoughts are on any of these book to movie comparisons, like if you agree or if you find them similar to any other TV shows or movies, then also let me know that. Huge thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you're all staying safe and staying healthy, and thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys very soon with a new video. Bye.